In 1943, I must have been only 8 years old, a child. But I have some very, I should say, strong memories regarding this famine. The first thing I can remember is the atmosphere in the house changed a little. The elders were not so careful in those days to sort of hide things from their children. So they were all the time discussing the rise of prices in the market, particularly the price of rice, the main food for the Bengalis. That increased phenomenally. Well, we used to hear almost every day the price of rice has gone up to 30 rupees a mon, or 30 rupees a share. 30 rupees a share was unthinkable in those days, because normally in those days, as far as I can sort of calculate back, it must have been two rupees or 1.5 rupees per share. But it went up to 40 rupees, which almost made rice untouchable for a normal middle class family. But we were still managing, I mean our parents, because we had just a small bit of land producing rice. Maybe because of that. That too, I think, as a backlash. I didn't realize it at that time. And then we started feel the cruelty of the whole situation, the famine. People from villages started crowding in the small and big towns nearby. In our town too, we started witnessing such crowds coming from the village, very, very poor. I mean, they were in fact beggars by that time. But previously they must have been at least reasonably well placed people doing agriculture, but everything was beyond them by that time. And they were roaming in the streets asking for food, not for money, because they knew that a little money into their plates, they were carrying a plate, thala, will not save them. They were asking for food. And this particular thing was very noticeable during the lunch hours, when the day was right in the middle of the day, when everybody knew that now people will go and sit for their lunch. These people from the villages, they would crowd the streets, they would come to the houses and would cry out, "Pendao ma pendao." Anyone who has heard that cry, pan is the water coming out of the boiled rice. They knew that if they asked for rice, cooked rice, even the person from whom they are begging he hasn't got the means to give it to him. But usually in a Bengali household, that boiled water is thrown away. They were asking for that so that they can survive. And anyone who has heard that cry, that same cry all over Bengal, Pan dao ma, mother give us that boiled water, will never forget in his life. Never, never. And it will, whenever I remember it, you see, even now I feel so shaken. It was terrible. And then some kind of rationing was introduced. Some kind of, not a full-fledged rationing, but the government office used to issue some kind of I don't know what. We used to hand in a few sheet of paper and go to the grocer and could get a few things, rice, but rice was almost all the time not available in the shop. Lentil and sugar and a little bit of oil. These are the few basic things. So myself, 8 years old, and my elder brother, 10 years old, we used to go and stand in the queue. And that was our first experience of forming a queue for something, whatever it is, and that thing was essential something, standing for queue so that we can procure some food stuff, uncooked, but food stuff from that grocer. So this I remember. And then we had the opportunity to come to Calcutta.
From where?
From Krishnanagar. We come from Krishnanagar, about 70 miles from this city. But we had some opportunity because we had relations. There were some. It went on for about a year or so in Calcutta, as well as in our own hometown. We have witnessed people died and the carcass remaining unattended, unclaimed at a roadside. It's the most shocking thing that a human life can lose its primary dignity in a way like that. I can never forget it. And probably I will not forget it as long as my memory holds. Well, it must have modified us who have gone through that period. But for me, it wasn't a conscious, change that came over us. It was part of that, part of life at that juncture of history. I wasn't grown up enough to sort of analyze it or condemn it or whatever it is. All I have retained is the shock of the whole thing. When we used to come to Kolkata, we have seen this I have not seen in our town because our town was small. But even then there were stray cases of people picking up from dustbin something. The refuse that is being thrown into the dustbin, the beggars from the villages coming and picking up things and eating there. And well, these things have passed away long since. Only after 3 years came the riots. So it was misery piled over misery, for the country. And when the riots came, then we were a little more, more grown up to understand what's happening to our country. But there was always a kind of dream. There was always a kind of a dream in front of the nation that India would be free, India would become independent, and will not have to go through this hell. Well, so things have certainly changed after that. Marginally though. The poor are still there. The beggars are there on the streets even now. But may not be picking up food from the dustbin, may not be dying on the street. Once in a while there is someone dying. Like one I remember, during that time, there was a very old, emaciated man who took up his residence in one of the, the Ruak amader jeta hoy, the front veranda of the house of a next door neighbor. He was a rich man, this neighbor. On his front veranda, this beggar started residing for a few days. And he was so weak that he couldn't even move from that place and go and beg from door to door. At night, I used to sort of surreptitiously take away few of my bread from my plate, not letting others know that, because the parents may not allow me to do that. I would take them and scale the wall and go there and give this old man maybe two piece of bread. Every day. One night, my family member said, I was 8 at that time. Where are you going? I was caught. Scaling that. You can't do that. This is very bad, and going at this hour of night. Where are you going? I didn't say where I was going, because the bread was in my pocket. I didn't go and couldn't go. The very next morning, as soon as there was light, I ran to that man and found him lying dead. So that was such a remorse. I thought that if I could come last night, I'm pretty sure that he would have died in any case. But that gave me such a feeling of guilt that I couldn't do something which I could have done. Well, these are the things. There are umpteen such incidents happening to all the children in our Bengal during the years of famine. And when I grew up, I became an actor and also a student of literature. Bengali was my subject in my college. I came to read this Ashoni Sanket by Bibhutibhushan Banerjee, the writer who wrote Pather Machali. And also many other books about famine, because famine always haunted me. Tara Shankar's Monnantar. There was a few brilliant short stories by Narayan Gangopadhyay. Everybody wrote about that. And there was one book explaining the reason of the famine. That was Desher Kotha the news of the country by Sakharam Ganesh Deuskar, who was originally a Marathi but lived in Kolkata and wrote in Bengali. So that, all these things sort of kept the horrors of famine alive in my mind. When there was this talk of making a film, I mean, when Satyajit Ray thought that he will make a film of this, the first thing that came to my mind is I will get an opportunity for the first time in my acting career to show something, at least in my own little capacity, a thing that have haunted me all my years. And many people said that it is one of my best performances till date. I know why it is, because I have lived through those experiences. Those shadow of death looming large behind my head.